I'm very happy that we were invited to give a presentation at this online event of Let'sConnect. Who are we? Sebastian Barles and I were both from the University of Koblenz, and you might be wondering why are people from a university talking here? We are actually also heavy users of connections from the first version that came out 11 or so years ago. We've always been running a large installation of it on our own servers on premises. So we really had to also deal with a lot of technical things over the years. We're providing this platform to 30 universities, and we have more than 3,000 users on that platform. So I'm just saying that to give you an impression that we're not just academics doing theoretical research, but we do a lot of hands-on, also technical development on this platform. I'm going to give the presentation, but Sebastian is here to join in the discussion then. He actually labeled this presentation a zoo of tools, which I like a lot. Current strategies behind enterprise collaboration platforms. What would we like to do with you today? We would like to present some findings from an empirical study that we performed. So this is based on actual data of enterprise collaboration platforms that are in use in user companies in the German-speaking area, mostly from Germany and from Switzerland. And we've surveyed them. We surveyed what they are using, the whole spectrum, the whole portfolio of collaboration tools. And what I would like to do today is, since we are a university, I would like to provide you with some classification of how to look at such platforms. We're going to show you the current dominant configurations that we found, and we're also going to talk about how selection strategies could be supported by these findings and what the future might look like. It might not sound like it, but the presentation really links nicely with both of the previous ones, because I'm going to definitely address some of the issues that Adam addressed, for example, the elephant in the room, HCL and Microsoft. I hope I provide some classification to talk about the difference between these two approaches in a more structured form. And we're also going to talk a bit about what you just saw in the customizer. We need it ourselves for research, desperately, actually. Would be nice if we could have it. We have it on our test server. But it also links to some of the issues that we will point out regarding modularization of enterprise collaboration platforms. I'm going to make it easy for you to decide if you want to listen to me, because I'm going to start with the key findings. After that, you can decide you like it and listen to the backgrounds of it, or you could decide, okay, that's not for me. The agenda then goes on to some terminology very briefly, just so that you understand our classification, what's the thinking behind it. And then I'm going to delve into the study, the empirical study of these configurations that we found. And then I'm going to have some words on the road ahead, and also what we're going to do in our research, of course, just at the end, just a few words about that. So what were the key findings from our study? I'm going to say a bit more about what kind of study that was, but the key findings were really the need to build integrated platforms. And I think we already heard a little bit about in the previous two presentations what this idea of being integrated means and being open to other tools, for example. We found that specialized little standalone tools that can't be integrated are maybe tempting, but they're quite bad from an IT management point of view. Second, enterprise collaboration systems. I'm going to tell you in a second what the difference is between systems and platform. are candidates for the core, the core of these platforms. They provide a uniform user directory natively, and also mostly they have APIs, depending on the product, of course. Then we're going to raise our message here that the workspace is really where the music plays, that this will be decisive for the software selection. And I think this is the point that helps most in talking about the differences between, for example, Connections and the Microsoft portfolio. And then lastly, we are going to look at some background IT operations issues regarding provider platforms, where I really see a very strong possibility for HCL to excel and to be really good building up an ecosystem and also bringing in Domino at this point. So what did we do in this study? What's the databases? We surveyed with a questionnaire, with a structured questionnaire, 23 user companies, mostly the big ones in Germany. They represent a total of 730,000 employees. We got 23 responses, and they were all from Industry Connect. This is an initiative that we are organizing and running for user companies for exchange, similar to DENOG or to Let'sConnect. Now I lost the plot. The questionnaire wasn't quickly developed and then put out to the companies, but it's really a project that we've been working on over 1.5 years, I would say. So that questionnaire was really frequently tested before, and it grew over time. It contains a really extensive list of all the little collaboration tools that are today in use in large companies. So it's that alone, the questionnaire alone, is already an outcome really of our work with these user companies. I'm just going to really be brief in the terminology. We've already heard a bit about that in Adam's presentation. I'm of course showing it a bit in a different style and picture. Because we really need to be very precise, and we need a good classification for it. A lot of the excitement that has been going on, especially with the Corona crisis, was in the area of communication, when suddenly everything was synchronous, video conferencing, very people-centric. This is an area that is important, but our competence center is actually engaging also a lot into work, actual work, cooperation, work on documents, coordination, putting things into sequence, task management, and so on, including content, enrichment, preservation, sharing things. So as I said, a lot of the conversation and discussion is here. But we will also be looking at how to support people and companies overall and in their daily work. I promised I'm going to explain what this enterprise collaboration means and what the platform and the system in this context means. And for this, I would like to run you briefly through our classification here, this systematic view on platforms. The whole thing that you see here is a platform. It is built on people identity management. And here we already have the first distinction. Every tool has its own technical user directory with user accounts, can be an LDAP and Active Directory. But then, of course, we will look into the informational part of this people-centric work, namely when people get connected and develop social profiles. And I can really look up, for example, in a post, who's the author behind this. All tools have this, only very few tools provide the right side here. Then, as I already indicated, a strong development and deployment environment is also a characteristic of a platform. And then I'm going to talk about the harmonized log when I come to the research section. But let me say The customizer helps with that because natively we have no harmonized log overall. This zoo of different tools. Yeah, and then this is the application level, and that's of course where we are focusing on what are companies offering their employees for their use and their support in their daily work. You can see here, and this is the last thing I'm going to say here, the core enterprise collaboration system. And that is really, I think, where the discussion needs to go, because when you build up such a platform for your company, you have to start with something. Something has to have, in the ideal case, one technical user directory. And the enterprise collaboration system is a candidate to start with that. And then you can work and grow around, scale, as we saw it in the previous presentation here. The more open these tools are, the more you will be able to even deploy them into your collaboration platform. But more about this is coming. So not to make it to let you wait for too long, what is it now, what we see in practice? So these 23 companies, what are they doing? I have to guide you through another systematic before we come to that. This is the classification that we use to really show the different profiles of the 23. So we drew this picture here that you see now for the 23 companies that responded in the survey. I'm making here the example of CEIR, that's us, our own platform, because that's where I'm most familiar with. And you can already see we have a problem here, yeah. Tivoli directory server and HCL Domino LDAP. So we have already two central user directories. Not ideal, but we will see that this is the case for a lot of the companies. So it's a dream to have only one. Then there's an area of productivity tools. That is where we actually have our email network directory. So some simple things. We have the intranets and digital experience platforms. They are very centered around communicating content and pushing content out. But as we heard before, it's not really the back channel. The back channel is coming here and then later in the core when we have video conference chat. But this is still outside, usually outside the central enterprise collaboration system. And you can see, poor us, yeah, our users already have to deal with all these decisions of redundant tools that you're always wondering, so which tool am I going to use today? But that's the world. And I'm not saying we should not have that, but we need to make it a little bit more pleasant to support that choice. Yeah, and then since we are a competence center for HCL connections, we on our platform have connections in the center, and that is really where all our integration is situated. Yeah, this is where the coexistence of different tools may be supported. I didn't put everything in here. We also have some installations of Alfresco and Atlassian for test purposes, but that's not what we really use. I have indicated here with these tools in the classification what it really is. This is very functionally oriented, as you can see. These round things signal that it is a component in a system. So these are already natively integrated. When here outside, these are third-party applications or even simple tools like an Nextcloud with a very determined purpose. Yeah, so when it comes to the joint work, we have different areas in the core. We have communication again. Don't think that's a mistake, that it's twice, because this is the area of the mostly externally oriented with people who don't use connections. That's where we go to communicate. But then, of course, we also have communication components inside of connections, including we have same time and are still waiting for that beautiful new version of it. yeah, then cooperation, coordination, and content combination is represented in all of these components. So that's supported in the core. And then I said I'd come to that. What makes it really different is that the core system that we have here brings the capability for an enterprise social network. So it's not just working together, it's also linking to a profile where I can see what that person, who that person is, the expertise and so on, provided the content is filled in. Yeah, so this is just one example of how we classified and tried to show this portfolio, and in the title I said zoo. And now we come to the three dominant ECP configurations that we found. The first one was what we call the concentration approach. And you can already see of the 2310, we're following this concentration approach. This is not very surprising because we have a user group with originally only HCL Connections customers. So they all have this strong core. Building from that core, they have all kinds of other applications, but as we found out when we profiled them, these outside applications, they don't really influence the dominant configuration. It's mostly what builds the core that decides, is it concentration, or the next one was diversity. That's mostly larger companies. Positively speaking, you could call it best of breed, but I think it's just thrown together a bit. I mean, you can already see the poor user will have the choice of the wiki in Atlassian, the wiki in Connections, and the wiki in Microsoft. And again, I'm not condemning this. I think it's absolutely possible that we have a coexistence of redundant functional modules, but it needs to be somehow sorted and communicated. Yeah, the user has to not consciously always take that decision. And the last one was dual core, as the name says. We also have some companies in our sample that have, for example, Microsoft and Atlassian, two suites, but it came in every combination. It came Connections, Microsoft. As you can see, with the case numbers, I just chose 3 companies that I found represented the dominant configurations very well. We also had 3 that just participated, but they are still in the forming phase, so you can't really assign them to any of these types. Yeah, so you can already see this is very, very classified, very systematic, and for us it provides a super way of thinking about what do I want to support in a company, because now I can, for example, speak with people that are building up a social intranet using that word, if it's not maybe intranet and a bit more, yeah, if they want to support really the back channel, people communicating with each other, working maybe on documents, etc. So for us, this was important to just sort our view of collaboration in general. So now I come to the key findings again. I can see in Zoom that I have not lost too many of you, although you never know in Zoom who's still listening. Okay, let's come back. Integrated platforms. We really believe that they are essential. Yeah, in the middle, there has to be a strong core system that provides you with the starting point. It's tempting to put a lot of standalone tools together, but every standalone tool means an integration process has to be put in place. We saw today that HCL is trying to make it easier for us, but it's still a bit in the future that this will be seamless. Yeah. So I think these enterprise collaboration systems are candidates for the core. And why? Because of 2 things: the user directory and the already existing content APIs between the components. Then I'm going to show that in a moment. We found that the workspace is really where the music plays for the user, not the platform level. Platform is just the tool portfolio, needs to be sorted, run by the IT management. but the workspace is where the user is thinking in the daily work. So as a consequence, then, when you are planning such enterprise collaboration platforms, you're normally these days not doing that on premises. I advise against it from my own experience. So what the future will bring is that we have provider platforms that are used to build enterprise platforms. So you have a platform in a platform, maybe even using multiple providers. I know one of the people in the audience has, for example, the user directory on Azure and is using for the workspace level the connections from a different provider, of course. So there again will be a coexistence, but the stronger the ecosystem of the software vendor, the software provider is, the easier it will also be for the user company to decide that's the one we're going to choose. Just think of the Apple and the Google Store. They really control their ecosystems by providing thousands of interesting, nice, fully integrated apps. And I believe HCL could do that too. We already have 5 or 6 apps that are natively deployable in Connections, and they're really cool. And we could share them with others. So coming to that picture, this would be the full stack, the hardware, the platform as a service, where you have the developers, the development community, and on top you have the range of different apps that you can then provide for enterprise platforms. So these are here the user companies that are building the enterprise platforms, those that we saw in the study. And so you have many platforms in a platform. And as I said, we also saw that it's normally not just one provider, but potentially many. But still, the platform is not where we stop our thinking, because work is contextual and is normally happening in workspaces. And there we have different kinds. We have the individual workspace here, my desktop. We have internal projects, departments that need to form workspaces. And we also have in cases where I work with partners and outside the company, even clients, we have external workspaces. And every time something new starts, an activity starts in the company, this is what we do. We start a self-managed workspace, and then we collect and pick and choose, hopefully, if it's nicely integrated, we just choose the components that this particular purpose needs. And yeah, this is very nicely animated. In our research, we have gone up to use cases and scenarios where over the day people access many different workspaces and then also use different components. But for them, it's contextual. They know where they are and they should know where to go. Yeah, so what we believe and what the study results also showed was platform and workspace are essential. You have to build a platform, that's the availability of services, of functionality. And then on top, you have these different kinds of workspaces that, of course, the members are selected from the technical user accounts. But then on the platform space level, it's very important that you have this enterprise social network where you can also see what others are doing. Not all workspaces are private, invisible. A lot of them are also public and invite for sharing and following, so that you really build a company with values and cultures in a world where most people work in front of a computer screen and really are losing touch with their office buildings and spaces. You have to somehow implement that user experience, as we already saw today, into the screen. Yeah. Good. How does it look? I mean, every one of you has done this before. When you start a workspace here, I've just given 2 examples here from HCL Connections. You click all these sub apps together, and the same happens in Microsoft Teams. But now looking at this picture again here, I would always say you can go from the workspace level to, for example, a component of Office, but it's a bit weird to go from a community level in connections to a Teams space, because that is somehow, for me, on the same classification level. But we will and already see, of course, integrations here between different core system providers. Good, now current research. Do I still have a few minutes? I think so. The harmonized event log. That is something you saw in my picture, but I didn't really speak about it. That is something that is extremely hard to track when you have this zoo of different tools. There are some initiatives too, technical initiatives to harmonize the event log, but we're not really there yet. In the ideal world, we would, with every user activity that happens on our platform, meaning no matter in which of the applications, you would have an event logged away that would show the system. So is it, for example, a portal I'm in, or is it in connections, a blog, the space, meaning, for example, a connections community, the container, that would be the blog component in the space, an intellectual entity. So for example, I am writing the first blog in that blog, the first blog post. Is it maybe a component? Am I responding to an already existing blog post, or is it just a like or a tag, something really simple? And then on that really took us a lot of doing the action. What's actually happening? Is it a reading? Is it a writing? So you can see where this is heading. On the platform over the day in all of these different applications, we have all of this user activity that is being logged. Not like this. This is idealized. This would be nice. And what we would like to be doing, I loved yesterday, Rene showed on his front page a picture of the matrix, and that was exactly also what I was thinking, because these activities in collaboration platforms are exactly that. It is the matrix. Things are happening. People are communicating. They're working on social documents together. Yeah, they are doing exactly that, and that's what we're looking at in our research. I know it doesn't look like what Neo sees when he looks at the matrix. It's a bit less exciting, but when you look a bit closer, this is really automated. Yeah, this is not hand drawn, but these BPM diagrams here are generated from high-level logs that we create. You can really see it was Julian here who created the blog post. Then obviously he had another idea, updated it. That's very typical. And our secretary liked it. That's these people that see to it that the information spreads in the community. Another one, Florian, liked it too. And then comes me. That's also typical. I don't just like, I have to say something. Yeah, so I added a comment to it. And this is just trying to show how we can now read in the matrix in these high level log events what is really happening. And of course, in the next step, we want to find patterns, match that with scenarios that are predefined. And we're currently listening on the platform for what the user is doing, and then performing some social process mining on it. There are lots of process mining algorithms in place already. So this is an ongoing project. We needed the structure of social documents for that. That was this event log that you saw. We're also working, very excited about that at the moment, on Worksite. It's our ontology-based data access even to SAP. We've built now an adapter that in connections, you can, as a user, see different end systems that are ontology-based. So it's no programming required, just customization required. And IREX is the model where all these use cases and scenarios are collected. So I have no idea how much time I took. I hope it was around 30 minutes. I thank you for your attention, and I'm really hoping there's lots to discuss now. What we wanted to do is provide you with structure. Yeah, everything I said, you can have a different opinion, but at least maybe now we have a structure to really speak about what we want to speak about. Okay, I end it here, and like you, thank you for your attention.